What's going on, everybody? So, today I'm going to talk to you about a build idea that I had when I was reading the patch notes for Season 4 of Diablo 4. One of the coolest things about Season 4 is going to be the changes to itemization and different abilities, and there's going to be so many viable endgame builds. And I know we're going to see the most popular ones, they're going to be all over the place, but I want to look at some things that would be incredibly fun and still very strong. So I'm going to be putting out a series of videos like this, talking about some theory-crafted build ideas that of course will need to be optimized once the season drops, but the concept should be strong. For this one, what we're looking at specifically is how to maximize arrow storms. We want to create a screen full of raining arrows all the time, and a bunch of explosions. So the reason that this idea came up was some changes to two key aspects, the vengeful aspect and the aspect of arrow storms. Vengeful says you have a lucky hit chance if you damage a vulnerable enemy, 25%, to create an arrow storm at the location. It deals a certain amount of damage, and that also gives a multiplier to arrow storm damage in general, 25 to 40%, or since I have it on a two-hander, up to 80%, and that would apply to all arrow storms. The other thing is the aspect of arrow storms. That wants to go off screen. So here we go. It's another lucky hit chance, a different one, that marksman skills have a 25% chance to create an arrow storm at the enemy's location. Same thing, deal damage, and another multiplier of the actual arrow storm damage. So you'll notice I have these on my two-hander and amulet to get the most out of them. I really want to see how far we can push this arrow storm damage. We're also going to stack a ton of attack speed into this build, obviously along with the lucky hits to make it happen. But that attack speed should cause these arrows to rain down very, very quickly, and it'd be something like a Blizzard Sork that stacks the same damage over and over and winds up with a huge cumulative DPS because they're all active at the same time. So let's look really quickly here at the gear and skills that we're going to use to try to make this happen. First thing, we always need lucky hits. We need to stack those, so we're taking Cal of the Nameless. This is going to only apply when we have crowd-controlled enemies, so now we have to find a way to CC, but this should help us get more arrow storms. The way we're going to CC, if I skip down here to the gloves, is we're going to use Icy Alchemist aspect. Sorry, I know this website likes to put things at the top, but what this says is that Shadow Imbued skills have a 75% chance to release an explosion that deals cold damage and chills enemies. Chilling slows, and so this is going to allow our Shadow Imbuement to be CC as long as it procs. But we have so much lucky hit chance built in here, and at a 75% rate, this should happen all the time. We're also taking these new unique boots, got to see how they work, but they're called Yen's Blessing. So what these do is casting a skill has a chance to cast a non-mobility, non-ultimate skill. It's currently on cooldown, so that can only occur once every 8 seconds. This should give us more uptime on our Shadow Imbue, and also it has Lucky Hit to restore resource, as vulnerable damage, which is going to go well with our Victimized Key passive. These boots look really optimal for this kind of a setup. I already went through Vengeful and Arrow Storms. And then our last two offensive aspects are branching volleys. We're going to use Barrage because we're going to try and get as many lucky hits as we can. When you upgrade Barrage and you do things with it, it's going to be flying all over the screen, hopefully triggering a ton of lucky hits and a ton of arrow storms. So that's why we're going with Barrage. Branching volleys just makes it hit more people. And so does High Velocity. It's going to pierce, so that's an additional person with all these arrows and more chances to proc our arrow storms. Resource-wise, we want to be able to spam Barrage as much as we can, so we're going to take an Umbral to go with our Icy Alchemist. All those CCs will give us some resource back, and we're going to go with Ravenous. Everyone's going to be vulnerable all the time. Remember, that's the condition for Vengeful to give us Arrow Storms. We have a ton of vulnerable, possibly too much in this build, but we'll find out. That's just going to increase our energy regeneration when we kill a vulnerable enemy. Defensively, we're taking Umbrus. We're going to crit a lot. We have a lot of crit chance built in. We're always using Markman skills. So we're going to get free Dark Shroud Shadows, which is a huge source of DR without actually having to have the ability on the toolbar. And then Cruel Sustenance. So when we get explosions from our Victimized Key passive, which is another lucky hit proc, we're just going to get heals. You could honestly run Juggernauts or Disobedience here if you need more armor, but looking at the gear, it seems like we're not going to struggle to cap our armor anymore. So we'll have to see. This might need adjusted. Similarly to down here, I put skulls in the jewelry. You may need to do something to top your resistances. This is really just a baseline. But we definitely want the vulnerable damage on our weapon, and max life still seems like the best option when it comes to our armor. We're going to run the preparation skill. It's the only one that really applies for us here. We could take combo points, but the goal is to get the damage from the arrow storms. So we're going to spend energy. We're going to reset our ult. We're going to use that ult to reset our other cooldowns. And I mean, if we're doing arrow storms, of course we have to have rain of arrows, and that's going to be the biggest arrow storm of all, right? So we'll reset that a lot. On the gear, and you'll see this planner linked down below, but on the gear, this is just like a best first guess, right? I don't know. This is probably not best in slot setup. This is something season 4 is going to come around. We're all going to learn about the gear and we're going to have to make adjustments as we go. So this is a baseline. We're taking attack speed, crit chance, lucky hit chance, things like that everywhere we can. And we're going to take more lucky hit chance to freeze on the tempering stats. And that's just to sort of keep the build flowing. On our skill tree, we are going to run Heartseeker. It has obvious benefits, right? More crit chance, more crit damage, gives some attack speed. So it's a good basic for what we're trying to do. It also has a high lucky hit chance at 50%. We want to hit all these lucky hits, right? Barrage, already talked about this. We want to cover the screen in arrows so that we can cover the screen in arrows. So we're going to take that, and we're also going to take the node that every third cast of Barrage is giving us guaranteed vulnerable so that we can keep that vengeful aspect going. 3 out of 3, we're always taking close DR. Just more important, the higher you level. We're going to take Shadow Step with 1 point and just take the cooldown reduction. We have 2 sources of Unstoppable, but Unstoppable becomes very important in late tier Nightmares. 27% DR against DOT effects. I love this node. Super important because we've all died to just standing in poison pools that we couldn't even see on the ground. So yeah, we'll take that. We're going to run Concealment. There's a couple of reasons for this, right? First of all, it's our second Unstoppable. It allows us to move freely through things, kind of like a Ghost Walker. We're going to get 40 energy back, so if we're out of energy, we can pop this. And when we break Concealment, it's going to be a guaranteed vulnerable attack. With Barrage hitting the whole screen, we're going to keep that vulnerable up, keep that vengeful going. So Dark Shroud is not on our skill bar, but we are going to put 3 points into it specifically so that when we proc it with our Umbra's aspect, we can wind up getting this increased crit chance. We should be critting a lot. We should be hitting a lot of people. So it's just a ton of chances and lucky hits and the ability to just get ourselves more crit chance by putting these points here. 1 out of 3 into Exploit, just so that we can get down here to put 3 out of 3 in Malice. We're going to take the increased crit chance when we're imbued. We're doing a few things to try to reset our Shadow Imbue. And we're just putting 1 point in. We want the explosions to do more vulnerable. Again, everything will be vulnerable all the time. This is how we get the constant flood of arrows. Because we're using Icy Alchemist and we're going to be chilling and freezing, we can actually take 3 points for a great damage multiplier here and Frigid Finesse. This should be happening pretty often, so our Shadow Imbue should actually chill most people. And like I said, we're stacking Lucky Hit everywhere we can. So 30% chance to gain 8 energy when we Lucky Hit. Our non-physical damage, like our explosions from the Shadow Imbue, are going to have a chance to Lucky Hit, create more Arrow Storms. And every 100 energy we spend, we're going to take a 15% increased Lucky Hit chance. We're going to be spamming Barrage, so our Lucky Hit is going to be incredibly high. This is just a free point. We had 1 point left over, had to figure out what to do with it. But we'll take the free 30 energy after we use our ult. And remember, we're using preparation, so we're going to have ult way more often than we otherwise would. Free 30 energy, why not? We'll take the 15% energy regeneration while we're moving, and we'll take the either movement speed or attack speed, depending on our energy status. And that all comes back to the Victimize key passive. Another lucky hit, but if we damage a vulnerable enemy, which is everyone all the time, and we're hitting so many people at a time, 50% chance to cause an explosion, and it's going to be increased by 120% of our vulnerable damage bonus. So we want the vulnerable damage bonus stat everywhere we can get it. These explosions should be pretty constant, along with our arrow storms. Really quickly on the Paragon, we're not going to go too deep into this because this is going to need to be so optimized once I actually get in and start testing and playing with this build. But I want to show you the glyphs and legendary nodes that I think are important off front. We want the chip glyph. This is going to stack our damage. It's a good multiplier. Diminish gives us reduced physical damage, like DR, from vulnerable enemies. That's everyone. It's going to be a constant source. We're going to take the exploit weakness, legendary node. So that's just going to stack our damage. It's going to multiply it. We're going to take exploit. The first time they get hit, they become vulnerable, so guaranteed vulnerable. And it's also just going to add, with every 5 strength we purchase in range, another 8% damage to our vulnerable targets. We're taking the combat glyph. So critically restriking with any skill is going to restore 12% of the energy cost. So barrage is going to happen a lot, and then we're going to get some of that energy back. We want to keep our energy cap so we can spam. Ranger, this is a good one for any marksman build. We're doing more damage when we're doing marksman skills. Kind of goes without saying, right? And we're also getting DR from that. Oh, and on this, we're also going to take the cheap shot node. 5% increased damage for each nearby enemy that's CC'd, which should be pretty much all of them. So we're going to stack our damage more. The control glyph, increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies, or if they're frozen, even more increased damage. Again, should be pretty much everyone. And Night Stalker. This is kind of, we had the points to go ahead and add this when we go into stealth, which we're using concealment. It'll reduce our shadow imbue by another 4 seconds. So all in all, what we have is a lot of ways to reset our shadow imbuement. We have a ton of lucky hit, a ton of attack speed, and we're going to crit a lot. And with Barrage hitting everything on the screen and those lucky hits flying all over the place, because that is a per hit lucky hit chance, I honestly can picture a scenario where what we've created here with some optimization is a screen that is constantly full of just raining arrows, destroying everything in its path. I can't wait to see how it works out. I'm excited about the idea. I'll definitely be putting it together for this channel in season 4 and, getting some actual gameplay footage when the time comes. If you think this is a cool idea, I'm going to put out a bunch of these. So please subscribe to the channel. They'll get sent to you directly. Don't forget to like this video. And if there's any specific concept you'd like to see turned into a build, I would love to do it. Just leave me a comment down below and let me know what you're really excited for in season 4 of Diablo 4. Thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all next time.